Recall the luminous stars from our era's silver screen. Many of Hollywood's beloved legends fought a futile battle against time and regret. Aging gracefully is a shared hope. Yet, the harsh glare of the spotlight forced our idols toward tragic surgical regrets. Now, we explore the somber reality of these drastic changes. Witness how the king of pop lost his true self, a top 90s muse became a prisoner of her skin, and the chilling choices that redefined their legacies. These are the ghosts of Hollywood's vanity. For those of us who grew up watching the vibrant kid from Gary, Indiana, Michael Jackson wasn't just a pop star. He was a fundamental part of our American fabric. We vividly remember the soulful boy leading the Jackson 5 with a joy that felt untouchable. Watching his physical metamorphosis over the decades wasn't merely a tabloid fixture, it felt like a slow-motion heartbreak for an entire generation. While his transcendent genius changed music forever, Michael also became a haunting personification of the heavy toll exacted by fame. It arguably began in 1979 with a rhinoplasty following a stage accident. But as reports from the New York Times and Rolling Stone later highlighted, the 1984 Pepsi commercial fire, which left him with severe scalp burns, likely served as a tragic catalyst for his lifelong reliance on reconstructive procedures. What followed was an agonizing war against his own reflection. It wasn't simple vanity. Michael was a man haunted by deep-seated childhood trauma and the isolating reality of vitiligo, a skin condition confirmed by his autopsy that stripped away his pigment. To the world, it looked like he was erasing his roots. To Michael, the scalpel was perhaps a shield against a past he couldn't outrun. Behind the historic moonwalks lay a fractured soul trapped in an increasingly unrecognizable silhouette. For those of us who remember his off-the-wall glow, his story remains our greatest entertainment triumph, but also our most profound American tragedy. We didn't just watch a star change, we watched a legend lose himself in the mirror. For those of us who fondly recall the high-fashion era of the 1990s, Linda Evangelista was the ultimate face of the Big Five. She wasn't just a model. She was a chameleon who defined a generation of unapologetic glamour. When she famously quipped in Vogue that she wouldn't wake up for less than $10,000 a day, she embodied the peak of the American supermodel phenomenon. We admired her strength and her ability to reinvent herself with effortless grace. However, her story eventually took a devastating turn, shifting from a runway dream to a chilling cautionary tale about the dark side of modern cosmetic technology. Seeking to maintain her youthful silhouette, Linda turned to cool sculpting, a fat-freezing procedure marketed to many of us as a safe, non-invasive miracle. Tragically, as she later bravely revealed to People magazine, the treatment backfired. Instead of shrinking her fat cells, she developed paradoxical adipose hyperplasia, PAH. This rare, cruel condition caused her fat cells to expand, harden, and form painful, permanent lumps. Despite undergoing 2 agonizing corrective surgeries, the damage remained. For 5 years, the woman who once commanded the world's attention lived in total isolation, deformed, and brutally disfigured by her own account. For our generation, constantly bombarded by marketing promises of eternal youth, Linda's heartbreak is a sobering reminder. She reminds us that the pursuit of a perfect reflection can sometimes lead to losing our very sense of self. Her journey proves that true grace cannot be manufactured in a clinic, and some prices are simply too high to pay for vanity. For those of us who followed the high-stakes drama of New York's social elite in the 1990s, Jocelyn Wildenstein was more than just a headline. She was a living spectacle of the Gilded Age's darker side. Dubbed the Bride of Wildenstein by the tabloids, her transformation horrified and captivated the American public in equal measure. Yet behind the shocking appearance lay a heartbreaking narrative of a woman desperately trying to salvage a crumbling billionaire marriage. As documented in the sensational reports of the era, Jocelyn's descent into extreme surgery was a misguided attempt to mirror her husband Alex's lifelong obsession with exotic felines. We watched in disbelief as she underwent an endless barrage of radical procedures, drastic eye lifts to create a predatory gaze, and prominent cheek implants that skewed her natural beauty. Step by painful step, she replaced her human features with an unsettling, animalistic aesthetic. Estimates from major outlets like the New York Post suggest she spent upwards of $4 million in a futile effort to become his perfect fantasy. For an older generation that witnessed the vulnerabilities of the ultra-wealthy, Jocelyn's face stands as a haunting monument. It remains the ultimate symbol of how misdirected devotion can deform the most intimate thing we possess, our own identity. She didn't just alter her reflection, she sacrificed her very essence for a man who eventually turned his back on her anyway. Her story serves as a poignant reminder that the scars of a fractured heart can be carved directly into the flesh, but a scalpel can never truly mend a broken soul. For years, Simon Cowell was the man we loved to hate in living rooms across the country. As the sharp-tongued architect of American Idol and America's Got Talent, his biting wit and unapologetic standards became a staple of our Tuesday nights. We respected his brutal honesty, but by early 2022, it was Simon himself who faced a reality check he couldn't snark his way out of. The man who once seemed untouchable appeared before the cameras with a face that looked increasingly unrecognizable, a casualty of what he eventually called a 21st century vanity. Simon later confessed to the press that he had gone too far with heavy Botox and facial fillers, attempting to freeze the clock in an industry that prizes youth over wisdom. According to reports in USA Today and People magazine, the obsession became so extreme that he looked, in his own words, like something out of a horror film. However, the most poignant X-factor of this tragedy wasn't the public's mockery. It was the reaction of his young son, Eric. In a heartbreaking moment of clarity, Eric burst into tears because he literally could not recognize his own father's face. For those of us who have lived long enough to know that a wrinkle is a badge of honor, Simon's journey is a sobering lesson. It reminds us that chasing a flawless reflection often leads to losing our very essence. Simon has since vowed to stop the scary treatments altogether, finally realizing that the most important reflection isn't the one in the mirror, but the one seen through the eyes of the children who love us for who we truly are. For an older generation raised on the values of natural resilience and accepting the God-given self, the story of Jessica Alves feels like a dispatch from an unrecognizable world. Many of us first encountered this figure years ago as Rodrigo, the man who captured global headlines for spending a literal fortune to become a human Ken doll. It was a transformation that defied traditional sensibilities, yet it was merely the opening chapter of a much more radical journey. In 2020, Jessica took a stunning turn, transitioning into a self-described, highly voluptuous Barbie, pushing the limits of modern medical science to their absolute breaking point. With nearly $1 million invested in her reflection, her physical form has become a high-stakes surgical battlefield. Major American outlets, including Inside Edition and People, have chronicled her staggering list of over 100 interventions. This includes 11 rhinoplasties, some of which led to terrifying bouts with flesh-eating bacteria and the risk of losing her nose entirely, and the controversial removal of 4 floating ribs to achieve an impossible waistline. For those who view the human body as a sacred vessel to be cherished through the years, Jessica's silhouette is a haunting sight. It is a silhouette detached from the reality of nature and biological limits. Looking at her today, one cannot help but feel a profound sense of concern. How much more trauma can a single body endure before it finally breaks under the weight of an artificial dream? Her story is a sobering reminder that while a scalpel can reshape the flesh, it cannot always provide the inner peace that comes with aging with grace. In the late 2000s and 10s, a haunting image surfaced on our screens that many of us found difficult to process. A young Iranian woman named Sahar Tabar, known globally as the zombie Angelina Jolie, became a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons. To an older generation that grew up admiring the natural allure of Hollywood legends, Her gaunt, skeletal appearance felt like a horrific, nightmarish distortion of the silver screen icons we once knew. For a long time, the American public was led to believe her hollowed-out look was the result of 50 botched plastic surgeries. However, as major outlets like the New York Times and ABC News later clarified, her persona was largely a digital mask created through elaborate theatrical makeup and Photoshop. Yet the tragedy wasn't entirely an illusion. Underneath the filters, her actual face had indeed been permanently altered and scarred by multiple radical procedures, a physical sacrifice made at the altar of an artificial online identity. The story took an even darker turn in 2019 when the Iranian government arrested the teenager, whose real name is Fatemeh Kishvand, on charges of blasphemy and moral corruption for her social media activity. She was sentenced to a staggering 10 years in prison, an ordeal made worse when reports surfaced that she had contracted COVID-19 while incarcerated. Following a massive international outcry led by human rights activists, she was released in late 2020 after serving 14 months. Sahar's tale is a grim, cautionary reminder for our times. It exposes the dangerous lengths to which today's youth will go for viral fame and how a desperate quest for online validation can collapse into a real-world nightmare of physical ruin and state oppression. For those of us who spent the 1980s in darkened theaters, Mickey Rourke was the undisputed king of raw, gritty American masculinity. With his smoldering gaze in 9.5 Weeks and that roguish, magnetic charm in Diner, he was our generation's answer to Marlon Brando. He wasn't just a premier sex symbol. He was a brilliant actor with a poetic, rebellious soul. Yet, we watched in collective shock as he walked away from Tinseltown at the peak of his fame to pursue the brutal, unforgiving world of professional boxing. The ring took a devastating toll that no amount of Hollywood makeup could hide. Rourke suffered a fractured nose, broken twice, a shattered cheekbone, and even a severely split tongue. As he later candidly told the Daily Mail, most of his initial surgeries were intended simply to mend the mess of his boxing injuries. Tragically, he admitted with agonizing honesty, "I went to the wrong guy to put my face back together." To rebuild his nose, surgeons even had to harvest cartilage from his ear. However, the result was a series of poorly managed procedures that left his once perfect features heavily distorted, creating a weathered, unrecognizable silhouette. For our generation, seeing Mickey today, even after his gritty, Oscar-nominated comeback in The Wrestler, is a bittersweet experience. We still see the flashes of his genius, but they are trapped behind a face that has become a haunting monument to his past. His story is a poignant reminder of how a few desperate choices can erase the identity we present to the world, leaving a legendary heartthrob looking like a stranger to the very fans who once adored him. For those of us who recall the tragic morning in July 1997 when Gianni Versace was lost to us in Miami, the name Versace carries a weight of both immense glamour and profound sorrow. We watched as his sister, Donatella, stepped bravely into the spotlight to lead the legendary fashion house. She became a permanent fixture on American red carpets, from the Met Gala to the Oscars. Yet behind the silk and gold, we witnessed a jarring transformation that turned a brilliant designer into a sobering emblem of how power and vanity can disastrously collide. Driven by the immense pressure to remain the face of a youth-obsessed industry, Donatella completely abandoned any semblance of natural aging. In a 2005 interview with Vogue, she famously admitted, "I do not believe in totally natural for women," a philosophy she etched into her own skin. We've seen her features shift through decades of laser treatments, Botox, and fillers that left her skin unnaturally taut and her lips plumped to a volume that defies human proportions. Coupled with her signature perpetually bronzed complexion and platinum hair, her image evolved into something evoking a rigid porcelain doll rather than a mature matriarch. For our generation, which increasingly values the dignity of a life well lived, Donatella's reflection offers a profound lesson. She proved that even the most powerful figures cannot outrun time with a scalpel. Ultimately, she didn't just cement her status as a fashion icon. She became a living, breathing warning. Her story reminds us that the pursuit of artificial perfection often eclipses the very humanity we should be proud to wear as we age.